Hello and welcome to Happy Foot, Sad Foot, your LAFC gateway drug and the only LAFC podcast with a sexual harassment lawsuit pending. I'm Travis Hellwig.
I'm Vince LaRosa.
I'm Darren Miller. This is news to me. Welcome to our preview episode of LAFC's MLS match versus the same team they played last week on Saturday, September 7th at Shell Energy Stadium. Take a wild guess where that is. At 5:30 p.m. You can watch it on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV Plus, and our live post-game call-in show will start 10 minutes after the final whistle at youtube.com/@HappyFootSadFoot.
Later in the show, because you freaks on Reddit and Twitter can't stop talking about it, we're going to rank every LAFC finals loss. And of course, we'll cover every storyline for this week's match and make some bets. But we'll talk about literally anything to avoid talking about the city that starts with an H. It's time for listener-mandated banter. Darren, Vince, it's been a while since we've done one with the whole team.
Yeah.
Our whole team?
Yeah, I feel like the last preview it was
We had international break.
Yeah, I was being scouted by Europe. They liked me being there so much.
Travis, it's us, Europe. We're going to want you on the U40 team.
U40 team for Europe.
That everyone convinced you that Steve Cherundolo got it handed to him so thoroughly in that finals loss that you thought you had a chance to become coach. So you went.
Vince, I listened to the show. Just because I wasn't here doesn't mean I don't support what we're doing.
But why would you do that?
Because I think you guys are funny. This is fun for me.
Oh, I thought you listened to the show just because you were like, I love the numbers, and one extra play is all I. You just put it on for like 15 seconds, and you're like, good.
I have a real banter topic, which is. Can you tell that my ring light broke?
No.
I mean, I don't count in this because you told me your ring light broke.
I'm using a second monitor to light this side of my face because the ring light.
You look well lit.
Hell yeah. All right.
I will say it's pretty MacGyver-ish that you pulled it off.
I'm lit by
work in the industry.
Lights on the ceiling that light not me.
Yeah, Darren, who also works in the industry.
Consistently terrible lighting.
Yeah, has track lighting.
I know how to do it. I just don't.
Sure.
And that's what you're paying for here at Happy Foot.
Yeah.
People who
you're
know
paying for the knowledge, not the actions.
A lot of institutional knowledge.
But they choose not to.
But you know you're in good hands because it's like we're people who know what we're doing. We're just being lazy.
Anyone who's been listening to this show long enough knows that we don't know what we're doing at all.
That's true.
Somebody said to us recently, do you think we listen for the soccer? And it was both an insult and a compliment at the same time, right?
Yeah, that's nice and terrible to hear.
I'm so glad they didn't say that to me. I just would have like mouth agape and just walked away.
We're giving you the most comprehensive look at all the podcasts.
Yeah. Not just like not upset per se, but just like horrified and like, but why? Why would you hurt me like that?
I don't think they meant it as an insult on you. I think it's like, we don't spend much time talking about soccer.
Yeah, it's a tight five.
I think the theory is if people were listening for soccer, we would approach that differently. I think it's time to end this.
Yeah,
let's start the show. Talk about soccer.
You guys know it's my birthday on Friday.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm only saying this so that listeners can send me presents.
It's funny that I said, is it, like as if you lie about it.
You can send it to BMO Stadium, care of Vince LaRosa. They'll find a way to get it to me. They know where
I live. Vince lives at BMO Stadium with Two Nips Dan.
I may or may not
in different sections though.
Sleep under that rug of a field that gets pulled up. That might have been where I was. That little opening spot where the referee was like, "Can we get this put down?" Might have been where I slept the night before. Maybe
I was going to say
he sleeps on the sand and he uses the grass as a blanket, and the goal is a pillow.
All right, start the show. I was just going to say, I don't think you're going to be here on Saturday because of your birthday, but you could get some Vince Super Chat birthday gifts going. That we'd split 3 ways.
Yeah, you can just.
We're gonna split 3 ways.
It'll be really easy to. You'll just be like, Vince isn't here because it's his birthday, so send him super chats, and that's the simplest thing.
And again, we're gonna split it 3 ways.
Yeah, of course. You know what you guys should do is just like go super heavy on the soccer on Saturday. And be like, we're gonna do this. It's the two of us. We got this.
I just start reading from the rules manual.
Laws of the game. There's only 14 of them. Couldn't take you that long.
Wow.
Well, it turns out anytime I bring anyone to a soccer game, they go, how does offsides work? It's not that complicated.
And then steal stuff from you.
I have
It's
photo
true.
evidence that he has it too, which is frustrating.
Is he out and about flaunting that scarf?
No,
First of
but
all,
I
it's a
have a
heat
photo of
wave.
him with the scarf.
Oh, okay.
Start the show. We've been trying to start the show for a while.
All right. Well, as the most casual LAFC fan on this show, I'm still dedicated enough to the team to watch every match and record 1 to 2 podcasts about it, but I don't have time to analyze all the stats and keep up with all the transfer rumors, roster moves, tactical changes, off the field drama, and whatever's going on with their next opponent. I just have way too many other things going on in my life. I have a full-time job, a family with 16 kids, a dog, a house to maintain, and thousands of unread personal emails that I've simply ignored so that I have enough sanity to answer all my work emails and also do all this other stuff. Also, I built a swing set this weekend. It has 2 swings, a trapeze, a climbing wall, a slide, a chalk wall, and a cafe table. You think I'm reading about Mateusz Bogusz missing day 1 of the Polish national team training camp because he didn't get there in time from LA in the original Polish? No, I'm not. I'm busy. Luckily, my friend Travis, the human LAFC crazy wall, is reading that shit in Polish because he plowed through Duolingo in Polish the day after Bogusz signed with the team. I know what you're thinking, and yes, he is also Polish, but he didn't speak the language before then, so this is purely part of an embarrassingly intense LAFC obsession. And he's here each week, breaking down the most important storylines of each match, so we can all enjoy them so much more in a segment we call Storylines.
It's your doma spatch.
Is there a way to feed
Wow.
the song like back through AI and have it sing it in Polish?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I bet there is actually.
Just an idea.
Darren. Oh, I also this is we're going a little bit on the fly with these storylines. We recently did that live version where I kind of just asked questions and people seem to respond. We got a couple of people reaching out being like, we like that style. So I'm going to go a little bit looser with it today, less structured and written the way that I've done in the past. And if you guys hate it, we'll go back, but I'm just going to give it a shot. But it's still a little written. Darren, Vince, Dince, I come to you mere days since a loss against a team whose name I can't seem to recall at the moment, with some storylines for an upcoming match against a team whose name I can't seem to recall at the moment. And the first storyline of the week is this. Just how tired are we? The loss on Saturday came after playing 2 other stressful games in a 7-day period. The Leagues Cup loss on Sunday and the turf piss battle at Starfire Field on Wednesday. The team looked absolutely exhausted in its 3rd game in 7 days. Now, we travel to a city that we historically play terrible in fact, a state we historically play terrible in, for another exhausted game this Saturday, although a week off could potentially make a big difference. Denny Bouanga is one of the players that I've noticed kind of looks a little tired for maybe the first time in his career. Either that or the defense has begun to figure him out a little bit. I'm curious. Since Giroud showed up, Bouanga looks a little off kilter. Vince, how tired do you think this team is at this point in the season? And how much of the loss last week can be blamed on that? Or is it entirely Steve Cherundolo's fault?
Oh. Well.
First of all, Dolo out.
Before you say anything,
My shirt
use Dolo out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dolo out, and why do you agree?
I can't. I just can't.
I need to start by saying I condemn Steve Cherundolo.
You know, if I do, someone will clip it and use it somewhere, and I just can't. It's just too much. It's too embarrassing. There's almost no fathomable way. Like, even when I watch teams that like legitimately, I'm like, oh yeah, they should maybe fire their manager. I just don't quite understand when people show up and they're just like, all I want to do is talk about how I hate my head coach and I just want him to fucking leave. Like, as if he's the only thing. But okay, I'm going off on a tangent. I don't want to do this. They're tired. The thing is, they've picked up some injuries at bad moments. And then also when you're good, you have to play more games. And I know people were like, well, maybe he should rotate more. Well, if you rotate, maybe you don't win those games and then you have another reason to be pissed off at Steve. So he didn't rotate. They were looking good. But yeah, they look tired. And I think one thing that we can't really measure per se, but Steve did bring it up post-game, was like, they're emotionally tired too. Like, they still run, like they still have a pretty good physical output, they were saying in terms of their numbers, but like the speed of thought just seems a little bit different. Some of the things that they're doing, including Denny, just like deciding, oh, every time I get the ball, I think I could just dribble through everybody, just reeks of like, I don't have any ideas right now because I'm just so gassed, and all I can do is run straight forward. And it looks obvious, and I think the fact that it looks obvious says just how tired they are.
I think like I was happy that Steve said that in the post. I say Steve because we're close personal friends. I was happy that my good friend Steve said that in the post game press conference, because that's how I view sports a lot of the times, is like, what's the mindset of the player? And if you were a player that just worked your ass off for a tournament that kind of doesn't matter, and then you went to the city where you had a crushing, humiliating loss last year and had a crushing, humiliating loss again in another final, just a few weeks after you had a crushing, humiliating loss at home from that team, it just would feel, I would feel exhausted. And I would be like, I don't give a shit about a regular season game at Houston. We made it into the Champions League. The fucking Supporters Shield matters less. Like if I was in their shoes, I would also kind of be like, fuck it, right? We just worked really hard and this sucks. And we play so many. That's actually a good question for you, Darren. Do you think we're playing too many games? Like, is the season too long for a successful team? Like, I know in Europe, they have different roster rules to make it more like possible, but we have a
Tell us
Trafico
about
next
what it's
week.
like in Europe, Travis.
Oh, okay. So most of the places have trains, and you can travel like between countries on trains, which is remarkable. So I've never done it, but I've heard about it. Also, they have different things in their McDonald's. I know that because I went to McDonald's.
I feel like every other TikTok I see is like, the McDonald's here is a walk-up window.
But okay, I feel like that can happen with multiple tournaments in other countries because their roster rules allow them to have the depth. Whereas here, we can either play our first team squad for every game that matters, or we play Nathan Ordaz and Eric Duenas and we get mad and we're like, why aren't we paying attention to Open Cup like we did that one year? So do you feel
stay tuned for the Nathan Ordaz and Eric Duenas show?
Well, that's it. Don't worry. That's question. That's a storyline too. Do you think we're playing too many games, Darren, or do you think it's just the nature of the roster rules, or both?
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, it is kind of both. I don't know that I would think that it's too many games if we had the same kind of depth that European teams have, that if we could spend the kind of money that they spend. You go down the depth chart and it's still exciting people to watch, and they're great, and it doesn't hinder our ability to win games. But I don't like seeing the trajectory and the story of so many teams every MLS season being dictated so hard by the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, it just sucks that, like, oh, the seasonality of the season is driven by this more than most things. And it's like, I'd rather it be driven by the gameplay. Yeah. And it's also, there's something great about it being like, okay, Saturday, the games are on, like, there's like a football thing to it. It's like, if you could just play once a week, and then sometimes it's twice a week, it would be great.
I was just thinking today, like, if we had won the Leagues Cup final, this loss against Houston would have felt like nothing, right? We could have even lost against Seattle and it wouldn't have been a big deal. Like Columbus has played more games than us this year and they won the Leagues Cup final. So we can't fully say it's just too many games or whatever, but I think there's compounding factors, and I think Columbus is a better team than us right now. One final question in this, are there too many games? Are we tired conversation? Do you think the Supporters Shield race is over? We are, I think, Miami's pretty far ahead right now. They keep winning without Messi. We are still a couple games back of the Galaxy in the West, but the Galaxy also lost. So being the top of the West is not out of the question, but it does feel like potentially in a points per game sense, we might not be able to reach Miami anymore. What do you guys think?
Whatever witchcraft Tata Martino had put into place when Messi got injured, and they still win games, and like they win them convincingly, but also they win them against like the biggest odds. Like, didn't they win a game where they had like 2 red cards?
Yeah.
Like I just felt like it was probably already gone. And we kind of talked about this a little bit on the post game. It was like the top end of the East is probably better. Like there's more elite teams, I think, in the East, but there's also more bad teams. And Miami gets to play all those guys, and they get shorter trips when they do that kind of stuff. So it was always going to be a tall mountain to climb. Yes, theoretically they were still in it, but it just felt like there was no chance LAFC was going to win out completely, right? And it seems like that's what you're going to have to do.
I think they're still in it.
Any follow-up?
Something about me as a fan is I refuse to admit that a team that can't come back or it's out of the question until the math tells me so.
That's just sweet optimism, I think.
I guess maybe, yeah. But it's also like that's what the math is there for. Like, why are we trying to
Is that what the math is
do
there
it on
for?
top of that? Like that, it does it for us. Why are we trying to say like, no, I know the math is there, but I think it's not possible? And it's like, well,
Right. There
the
is a
math gives
moment
you
in
the
which
exact
we are.
probability, and it's
Yeah,
not zero.
exactly.
So that's what I think.
That's so sweet. I need
that
to
was my
look at the
excuse in
world
high
like
school.
you.
The math does it for us. It's just it does it. Math is going to do its math whether you do it or not. Why do I have to do this?
It gets a little annoying. You can ask Allie, like, I won't turn off a game until the whistle's blown. And it's like, this is not, they're not coming back. And I'm like, well, I can't stop watching.
But if they do.
Right.
It is that fear, right?
It's happened just enough times where it's like, okay, but there was a time when you said it's impossible, and then they came back and won.
I left MLS Cup final when we lost to catch a flight. Like, truly,
I would have missed the flight.
Man, I think about it a lot. I mean, I still saw the Gareth Bale header on the Jumbotron from outside the stadium, but fuck, man, one of my biggest regrets as a fan. But I caught the flight right as the door was closing, but I got there.
The best of both worlds.
Honestly,
that's true. You did end up. That was a good.
And I listened to the PKs on the radio, and that was cool to hear like Denholm do the call. It was a fun way as we were like illegally driving to get to the airport. We were going so fast.
Do you know why I pulled you over? You were driving illegally.
Yeah.
But sir, MLS Cup final is right now. And hold on, Kristen Teo's taking it. Oh no.
Oh no. Okay, we'll turn it off. Kristen Teo. The second storyline of the week is one that is bittersweet and I think is on the front of a lot of people's minds. Can we survive this Nations League international break? 5 important players on our team and 1 unimportant player on our team have gotten a call up for international duty.
Darren, can you guess who the unimportant player is?
10th. I won't tell you which unimportant player it is. Just in case their family listens to the show. Darren, can you guess?
Is it David Martinez?
Who knows? Here's the list of the players that are missing.
In no particular order.
Tell me the list.
In no particular order. Kike Oliveira is headed to Uruguay. Matty Bogusz is headed to Poland for the first time. Very proud of my boy Matty. Denny Bouang is heading to Gabon. Omar Campos is headed to Mexico for the U23s. Maxime Chanot is heading to Luxembourg. And David Martinez is headed to Venezuela. And our current front line going into this week's match, I believe, will be Olivier Giroud, Nathan Ordaz, and me. Truly an unstoppable team of 3. Now, we are already exhausted. Before we even talk about what it means for our team, what does it mean for our first line players? Everyone on that list besides, Martinez and maybe Campos. Campos has kind of creeped into that conversation, though. What does it mean for those players to go, like, what does international break mean from a exhaustion level? How will they be more tired from the trip? Will they be less tired? Like, they now have 2 games in a week-long period, but some of them might not play the whole game. What do you think it means for their level of exhaustion on top of what it means for our team?
It really depends on what the travel's like. Like you can have travel nightmares no matter what, because I mean, not all these guys are taking private planes and stuff like that. They're flying, probably flying first class, but you can still have travel nightmares. The thing is, training with your national team is much less stressful, especially this window. Like, anytime you play for your national team is an honor, right? But like the September window is always like, because it's coming off of most international tournaments, it's like a regrouping. Coaches are kind of like, oh, let's kind of get some new faces in the groups. That part won't be as stressful. But yeah, if you have just some nightmares going to and from, I mean, I would love to see all the miles logged of these 6 guys over the course of this next week and a half. It's going to be pretty intense.
I'm genuinely curious what our front is going to look like.
I didn't want to like hijack your storylines, but I wanted to almost flip it and say, like, Travis and Darren, will you pick our 11 right now?
Darren, you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Okay, we've got Giroud, Kamara.
In goal or up front?
Yeah, where are you putting him? He has played goalie.
Hey, you're asking me. I put Lloris up front.
You would. Can he still use his hands if he's
with
not
Lloris? He can play goalie. We can have 3 forwards, and that's all we need. He's kicking it over the midfield anyway.
Okay, your optimism has gotten too much. We need to reel it in.
Okay. Kamara, Giroud. Is it Ordaz? I mean, Yeah.
It's you putting it
Okay.
together.
Ilie.
Wait, is Ordaz
Tillman?
in there or no?
Yeah, Ordaz.
Okay.
Who can I? Ilie, Tillman. Who's left?
Atuesta's still there.
Atuesta.
O'Brien.
Atuesta. I guess I'm putting Atuesta in.
What number are we at?
That's
He's got
right?
6. So you need 4 defenders or 3 defenders,
Yeah.
2 goalies. I don't know how you're doing this.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll do Campos, Hollingshead.
Campos not there.
Fuck. I guess we'll do Hollingshead. Is Murray healthy?
Don't know.
Oh
no,
my God.
I would say no.
Yeah, you would. You would say no. Does anyone play defense for LAFC?
He's gonna be in Splint and Darren's optimism. He's still probably pretty good.
Aaron Long.
Eddie's still there.
Yeah, Eddie Segura. Is that 4 or do I still have one more?
I think by default you got to put Sergi in there unless you're
Sergi.
unless
Good. I like Sergi.
Unless you have some academy kids or guys from LAFC too that you really like. I didn't think you went that deep.
But Ordaz is the only one I ended up putting in there. Okay. Other guys you wouldn't bat an eye seeing them starting one a day. And not all of them together necessarily, but it's not the worst lineup.
Okay, here's my guess. We're gonna start from the back. Hasal starts. We're giving
I
I
honestly like that. I think that if he's healthy enough and like you ever thought about starting him in a game, I know that it's probably not a good idea to put him in a game that they're likely going to lose, but why not?
I keep thinking about the game after this is El Trafico, where a bunch of people are going to be really tired coming from international break. So I think you give Lloris a break. He just had a really insane 3 games in a row. Hasal starts, right? And then in the back we have...
Both of you are saying throw the match, essentially.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, go
on. And then in the back we have Palencia. We have Hollingshead. We have Long. And
Tommy,
that's the thing.
Is
There's no
like,
I'm gonna play like
he's
who else do you put in?
So Della Valle's still hurt. Oh, Segura. Okay, so that's
we have
fine.
the same back line.
Yeah, same back line.
In the midfield, we're going Atuesta because that guy needs more reps. Tillman and Tommy Musto. Tommy Musto's getting
what
start.
about Duenas?
We know this is a Tommy Musto pod. And then we're Giroud up front, give him a start. Although maybe he needs the reps. Give Giroud a start. And then we go Ordaz and Angel gets brought. Angel's in Phoenix, right? We got rid of him. Who can we surround him with? Kamara is going to be a super sub. Who else can we put up front?
Mueller?
I was gonna say Mario Gonzalez. He's still on the roster. I guess it has to be. Who the fuck would it be?
Can I say I don't know for sure what they're gonna do. I mean, it depends on, again, to your point, Darren, how much they really want to go for it. If I had to venture a guess of something that we wouldn't consider them doing, it would be Tillman as one of the wingers.
I was about to say.
Oh, interesting.
Put Ilie in and move Tillman up.
Yeah, just because he early in his career, because he's a pretty good dribbler and was an offensive player, like that's kind of where he started, and then he got kind of moved and played between there and a 10, and then they've kind of figured out that like he's more of like a complete midfielder. I'm just saying that's like a curveball that I could see as being really weird that people maybe don't think about.
So we're putting Tillman in the front line. I'm actually going to switch out Atuesta. We're going to keep Musto in there. Musto's earned it, and O'Brien is taking Atuesta's spot.
Oh, O'Brien!
It's O'Brien, Ilie, Musto, and then we have Tillman up front next to Giroud, next to Nathan Ordaz.
I don't think this is a bad lineup, honestly. This is not bad.
It's not horrible, but compared to what Houston's going to bring, that's not good.
I put Musto in. Okay, final storyline of the match. Our final storyline of the match is a bit of a bummer, but it comes up in every single post game we've had for the last few weeks. What the fuck is going on with Edward Atuesta? Atuesta was absolutely a star boy for this team when he joined a few years ago. He left, had a bad time, and he seems to have brought that bad juju back with him to LAFC. He was fine at the beginning of the season. I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to know from you, Vince. Sometimes it seems like it's not just a skill problem. It seems like an effort problem from him sometimes. And I don't know if I'm reading into it too much, but especially when he turns the ball over, it just feels like he gives up. And I'm curious what you think about how Atuesta has played for this team, and especially over the last month or two, and how much you think it's a fit question versus an effort and personality question.
No doubt he's had a rough month. I would say in his defense, some of the errors he's making just seem to be glaring and people are looking for them. Like obviously the play against Columbus, and that's why he gets subbed at halftime. You can't put that kind of effort in, but I've definitely seen plenty of midfielders that are very good put that kind of effort in on a corner. Just because you're rushing at a guy, you figure you just kind of jump and you don't expect him to just bypass you that easy, but that's not excusing him. I'm just saying, like, it seems like whenever I'm watching a game and he has one bad pass, even though it doesn't result really in anything, next thing I know, I see people on Twitter being like, I never want to see this guy in my team again. And they're forgetting that, like, there's a lot that he does in the game. On top of that, when we talked about this, even though they were winning games, I still don't think a midfield two of Ilya and Atuesta serves either of those guys. And they made the best of it. They got them to a final. At times they played really, really good looking football and really worked well together. But at some point, I just kind of knew it was going to fall apart, because as much as everyone remembers Atuesta as a 6 or defensive midfielder, he was protected by two very mobile ball winners in Mark-Anthony Kaye and Latif Blessing. Like, he's not a traditional defensive midfielder. He's like, I'll get on the ball, you guys do all the work. So I think some people are misremembering him as being some kind of like pit bull back there when he really wasn't. And then lastly, still, the man's coming off an ACL injury. I just don't expect a player to be 100% in terms of their physical capacity at that moment. Again, not excusing some of the lackadaisical play, but I think some of it is he's had a bad month. People have read a little bit too much into things and expected a lot more of him than maybe they remember. We've remembered him so fondly. Again, I guess that's the downfall of coming back home, when you're like, oh, I could tarnish whatever. Not that he thinks about
He's
it, but
the football champion coming back to the pep rally after he graduated. And you're like,
Yeah.
who's that? He's still here? What's he doing here?
Well, yeah, and when we won MLS Cup, everyone was like, man, LAFC was so good that year. They just dominated everybody. That wasn't necessarily the case. They had to gut out a lot of wins and win in a dirty fashion a lot of times. So, yeah, we remembered him much more fondly than maybe he was. But I still think that there's a good player in there. And I feel like a full season back, a full preseason with LAFC, I still believe in Edward Atuesta. I think he's a type of midfielder that can really thrive in the right system.
Darren, at the beginning of the season, we spent a good amount of money getting Atuesta merch designed, and I think we sold maybe one piece of Atuesta merch. Do you think that was a waste of our money?
This is a good question.
And it was a bit, now that I think about it, it was my idea, and it was a bit of an A to C jump, right? He was the El Profesor, or whatever they call him.
El Profe.
And we made Atuesta University merch. But and at no point in that on the merch does it say his nickname, right? Like, we kind of made people make a logic jump.
I think I did a mock-up design that had the nickname in there, and it was just too much going on. So we were like, let's simplify this.
Right. So did we waste our money?
Yeah.
When we come back, we're going to rank finals losses.
And we're back with a trigger warning. We are about to talk about some of the worst moments in LAFC history in the name of exposure therapy.
Hell yeah.
Trust us.
I love therapy.
It's going to work. In the last few weeks, LAFC lost in another final and then immediately earned a spot in another final, which at this point feels like a threat. LAFC has racked up so many finals losses that there's enough to rank them, so that's exactly what we're going to do.
There's sadness looming.
So that's exactly what we're going to do, because that's what you do with things in the past. So we're going to put all this in our rear view and hope we never have to update this list in a segment we're calling Runner-Up Trophy Case. That's right.
Oh, perfect.
So
first, we'll have Vince go through the finals losses with a brief synopsis of what it was.
So I should start in chronological order then? This is a stretch because It's a final, but only in name. Western Conference Final. It was devastating. If you remember, they finally got over the hump, beat the Galaxy in the most important matchup of any El Trafico, and then fell completely flat 3 days later, despite going up a goal early in the match, Edward Atuesta, and then literally, actually, I was just singing the praises of Atuesta, but he went from scoring a goal to like a turnstile, 3 goals right down the middle of the field for the Seattle Sounders, and we basically tanked the best season ever in MLS, the most beautiful season in MLS, and didn't go to a final that year. And Sounders fans still like to hold that over us.
What year was that?
That's 2019.
Okay.
Then in 2020, it's the CONCACAF Champions League. That is, if people remember, the Champions League where we only had one real round. We went to León, lost 2-0. Everyone thought, okay, that's that. It was nice to be here. But then probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of that tournament where we absolutely dominated them. They didn't have a single shot on goal. We won 3-0. The world ends. Soccer comes back in all kinds of bubbles. We beat 2 Mexican teams on the way to the final, faced a third. We're up against Tigres, who's a giant, up 1-0. And then corner kick goal, and Pancho Janela got bodied by some bald guy. I don't remember who it was, but I can see him vividly in my mind. And they lose 2-1. Now jumping ahead to 2023.
We've established a pattern here.
Yeah, back again in the CONCACAF Champions League, and a team we know well, León. We lost 2-1 in León, despite thinking, the team León hasn't played in like 3 weeks. There's no way they could be ready to go, but they absolutely boat raced us and outran us.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, they had like a month to prepare for the game.
Yeah, for an entire match, and yet Denny Bouanga still stole one at the death to give us a glimmer of hope, but they again fell completely flat. Denny Bouanga, despite scoring that goal at the very end, had I want to say it was from 10 yards out, one chance that he just absolutely missed in the beginning of the game. Could have changed the whole complexion of the game. Ended up losing that
started the watch along curse.
The watch along curse, yes.
Where if we watched an important game for the LAFC YouTube channel, we would lose that game.
I was fired after that.
You were fired like a couple days later.
Quite a happy foot's advocate curse.
Not because of that, though. Okay, and so that was a pretty big bummer. Also, if you guys don't remember, that was the time when Timothy Tillman was like, it's not really about tactics in this, and everyone clowned Tillman, even though he was right. It wasn't really about tactics. It was about some other things, but everyone has their own idea of what tactics are.
You have a real axe to grind around the word tactics. Keep going.
I do. It's a theme. Also in 2023, a competition that is a final by default again. It's the champion of Mexico versus the MLS Cup champion. It's a one-game final that's in MLS's home stadium all the time. We play Tigres. If you remember, Denny Bouanga scored a goal that was then called back because they said Giorgio Chiellini had touched the ball twice, despite everybody in the world doing something similar to what he does, but who cares, right? And they lost in penalties. People got really mad about that one as if it really meant something, but we'll see where you guys rank it. That same year, wow, 2023, rough year for finals. We go to Columbus. Darren and Travis probably already in the stadium with COVID. Had to watch the team get absolutely dominated in the rain. It was 2-1, but the scoreline felt a little bit farther than that. And so that was...
It felt like we had negative goals.
Yeah.
That game.
Yeah.
And Carlos Vela cried after the game, and it was the last time we ever saw him.
Oh my God. So far, that's the one that has physically hurt the most just hearing about it.
And then the most recent one, 2024 Leagues Cup, in the tournament that no one cares about. Although I will say the players care about it because the prize money is actually pretty good, especially compared to some of the other tournaments. So when you say no one cares about it, the players kind of do. That game somehow ended 3-1, yet felt a lot closer. Olivier Giroud scored his first goal for LAFC, gave us a glimmer of hope. I remember him coming off the field and being like, come on, boys, you can do this. And then about 15 minutes later, Cucho scored, and then they scored one more.
That guy's good.
And so that Columbus teams, they're pretty good.
So those are the finals. Why don't we start? We'll each give our sixth, and we'll give a brief reason why. We'll keep it short and then go down the list. Number 6, who wants to go first?
Campiones Cup.
Any reason?
Well, they did score a goal that probably should have been legitimate, and then it's 0-0. They played pretty well against Tigres, and then just lost some penalties. Like, I can't get too overblown about that one.
I would put that number 6 as well. I was at that match, and I remember feeling invigorated after that match. Like, it felt like the fight they showed at that match against that opponent and how close, like, it kind of felt like it was a referee call away from them winning. Like, it made me feel good about the rest of the season.
I also have that in my number 6 spot. You guys have given good reasons. Let's move on to number 5. I'll start with number 5 since we'll do a snake. How about that? We'll go snake.
Okay.
What I have in 5th is the League's Cup loss that we just had against Columbus.
Interesting.
It was painful. The League's Cup didn't exist when 4 of these losses happened. So, like, for a good number, it's new. It's a new trophy. 2 teams have won. Yes, it hurt to lose to the same team again. I bet it hurts for the players. We just talked about the emotionality around it. I was sad. I don't care about the League's Cup that much. It would have been nice to win. Would have loved to win it. I just don't care about League's Cup.
Okay. I'm going to put the Western Conference final for my number 5 because it's just not quite the finals. And it's like, if you can't earn it to the finals, then I don't know. I feel like we didn't earn enough to be heartbroken enough for it to be higher ranked.
I'm actually going to go with last year's MLS Cup. Because remember how they beat Seattle? Like, what about in the way that they beat Seattle made you think? And I kind of knew that I knew that Columbus team was very, very good. No one wanted to listen. I would have rather probably played Cincinnati, who had Columbus basically up against it in the Eastern Conference final, and they somehow pulled it out. But I just, like, going into it, we were like, look, they've got one way to play, and if Columbus, like, even remotely plays okay, it's not going to be good for. And it was in Columbus, like a place that doesn't exist in my mind.
I was so cocky going into that game. We had played so many finals that year. I know we had lost it, but it was like, no one's better than we're easily the best team in Major League Soccer.
I mean, I kind of somewhat felt that way, but then as I started to be like, well, here's the scenarios in which we win. And it was like, Columbus has to just play like shit. Yeah. Otherwise, it was a toss-up, and then the fact that it was there made it was like, oh no, Columbus should be the favorite.
I also
did you factor in the fact that Colin Hanks would be bringing out the trophy at the beginning of the match?
You know,
touching it with his bare hand.
Now that you mention it, I thought it was 60-40, and now I'm readjusted. It was definitely 75-25 to the Columbus Crew.
Oh, no.
All right, number 4, Vince, you can start this one.
4 for me is going to be the Western Conference final. Like, similar to Darren, I just want to say that, like, I was in the press box being like, we're definitely going to the MLS Cup final. Like, we're the greatest team of all time. So just out of my pure stupidity, I don't want to raise it up any higher. It was really my fault, guys. I apologize.
Wow.
This is going to be upsetting, I think, to some folks. The Leon Champions League final from last year. I know it was devastating, and it was our second Champions League loss in a row. But in the back of my mind, I was like, we've already beaten this team, and we beat them in what is maybe my favorite game that I ever got to watch of LAFC. And it was like one of the most fun moments I've had as a fan was when we beat Leon on the way to our other Champions League loss. But something about the fact that I knew we had beaten this team in a really convincing way made it feel a little bit less painful. I understand that that wasn't the case for a lot of people, but it wasn't as painful for me as it was for others.
Okay, well, you're wrong about that. So my number 4 is the 2020 CONCACAF Champions League, because it's just easy for me to write off anything that happened in 2020. I can just push it away in my mind, and it's gone.
For me, it was like, maybe I could be happy about one thing in that year. Maybe just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it was in December too.
Like, to be honest with you, I have actually blocked out pretty much everything that happened that year. I don't actually remember it.
The year of the birth of your children?
No, that's 2018 and 2021.
Oh, okay. I just split the difference. All right, Darren.
Number 3 for me is, I suppose it would be this year's Leagues Cup.
Interesting. You both haven't said Leagues Cup yet.
That's what I just said.
No, well, I know.
We had it so high. We had it so high.
You both had
Travis,
it so high.
I said Leagues Cup.
I just said it.
Wow.
I literally just said it.
This 2-man podcast that me and you do, Vince, is great.
Hello? They can't see me? I'm a ghost?
I felt a cool breeze just now. Come through my headphones.
Okay, I've learned my lesson. Take me back home now. Leagues Cup this year, I don't know. There's still hope for us to finish out the year strong. We're in the territory now where it's like, I'm not giving an excuse for why it's not as devastating. It's in devastating territory. This sucked. Just not as much as the remaining 2 for me. But like, fuck Columbus. This was a great shot at some hardware at a sort of up and down year. This one stung for sure.
See, this one's tough because I feel like I know what my number one is. And now I'm like flirting with, is it Leagues Cup? Which it's not that I didn't care about it. Like I did want them to get revenge. But then also like CONCACAF Champions League feels like it should hurt more, but it was 2 legs. Like there's just something about like I really did think that 2023 CONCACAF Champions League LAFC was going to beat Leon. I thought they were the better team, more talented, but they went in, they were flat, and Leon, credit to them, like they just fought for everything all the way down. Yeah, I'm going to go Leagues Cup because I think that they had a good showing, and the fact that it was 1-1 into extra time, like it just didn't hurt as bad. But I will say that, I mean, I'm basically telegraphing what my number 2 is, but 2-legged finals are stupid.
Death on Two Legs, good Queen song.
Yeah.
My number 3 is the MLS Cup final from last year in Columbus.
That's your number 3?
My number 3.
Even though you traveled on Spirit Airlines riding on Darren's back?
It was a brutal
That's
trip.
the silver lining.
But I will say, had a wonderful time with my friend Darren on a trip, going to a final, celebrating our first year doing a podcast.
I hated the city of my ranking of it up.
I hated the city of Columbus, but it was, and the game was so boring. Like my heart wasn't in it after a while because it was such a poor showing that like. And
it became almost comedic.
Right. And I also think it was devastating. And you can listen to the post game afterwards. We were fucking sad. We were really sad afterwards.
Oh, no. We are actually disavowing everyone's feelings by the way we're ranking these. If you are not aligned with us, your sadness is not valid and you should really rethink your life choices.
But I also think it can't be decoupled from the fact that we won the MLS Cup the year before. And I think in my mind, it would have been, going into the game, I was talking about, like, are we the best team in Major League Soccer history, right? Mm-hmm. And that was because we had won the year last year, and I felt that we were the favorites going into that match. I've since learned that that's not the truth, but the fact that we won the year before, it's so rare to win back-to-back. It had been 10 years, I think. So it just felt like, okay, we got close to winning back-to-back. We didn't get it. This sucks a lot. I'm sad. I hate being in Ohio, but it didn't hurt me as much as actually my top 2 did. Now I want to go right into my number 2 because I think it'll make a lot of people mad. And it's the Western Conference Final against Seattle. That season, that I know it's not a real final. That 2019 season, it felt like we couldn't lose a game. It really felt impossible to lose. And I felt like I lost my innocence that day, where it was like, I'm following the only good team in Major League Soccer. I'm obsessed with this team. We just beat the Galaxy, that was the one thing we couldn't do. Zlatan grabbed his dick at Soccer Head. We had slayed the dragon, and the hardest battle had been won, right? We had just done the more difficult part of it. 3 days later, we play Seattle, a team that we knew we were better than. We had beaten other times in the season. We had the most goals from a player in MLS history, the most wins in MLS history, the best points or whatever in MLS history. It just felt impossible for us to lose. And then to be there at that game, lose the way that we lost, in which Seattle just mucked it up and fucking beat us down and annoyed us. It made me hate Seattle for a long time. It really like broke my spirit. I really thought it's rare as a sports fan you get a winning team, and I felt like that had to be our year. It almost felt like the Warriors losing a 3-1 whatever to the Cavs. Like that's the best season in MLS history. We can't lose that year. And then Adam Conover was with me, and he kept telling me like it's okay, don't worry about it. And this was his first LAFC game. He became a fan after that, but I had to be like, Adam, don't talk to me on the ride home, please. I don't want to talk to you. And so that's why, even though it wasn't a final, the Western Conference Final was actually the second most devastating game for me.
Wow. Made a good case for that.
I'll just get mine out of the way because I already telegraphed it. It was the 2023 CONCACAF Champions League. It hurt because I thought that they should have won. And I thought that was really going to cap off the, coming out of MLS Cup winning to how good they were. But again, 2-leg finals are just so weird. And I'm saying that full well knowing that like they lost both legs. So either way you slice it, it didn't matter.
Right.
it just takes a little bit of the drama out of it for me.
MLS Cup is my number 2.
The 2023 MLS
Sorry,
Cup?
2023 MLS. That's the only MLS Cup on here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
No, it was a different MLS Cup from like 2003. It was when Chivas USA made it.
Don't tell the truth. 2023 MLS Cup. Travis already explained it. I think you made a good case. It was fucking rough. It did feel like we spiritually should have won, and then Columbus was like, yeah, but we actually should have won.
You're just going to hand it to us?
Yeah, and we certainly didn't earn it. Yeah, and the silver lining was agreed. It was still a fun trip, and it was a nice combination of the hard work that we did that season. So there was a silver lining there, but it boy did that hurt.
I think Vince and I have the same number 1. So Darren, you want to go first, and then Vince and I can talk about.
To me, the León loss in the CONCACAF Champions League finals was the most devastating of all of this. I think, here's my hot take for the segment. If we had won that, we would also have won MLS Cup.
Oh.
I think that game, we were going into that, partially we lost on hubris. We went into that match on top of the world. We were having a great season. We had no concept of the idea that we could potentially be completely outplayed by them. We were all shocked by it, maybe except for Vince. And then not only was it a devastating loss to both legs, but then it cratered the entire season. It took there was maybe a full month after that of a hangover that we could not get out of.
That's such a good point. We could have hosted MLS Cup if we
Absolutely.
didn't lose all those games.
Absolutely.
Holy shit. And if we hosted last year's MLS Cup against Columbus, we have a much better chance of winning that game.
Not to mention, I think we would have been in much better form at that point.
Holy shit. What a good
the trajectory
argument.
being different.
Wow.
I think the trajectory got completely thrown off, and the sort of topsy-turvy season that we had would have been totally different. I think by sheer impact, this is number 1 for me.
It was, after that loss, you're right. It was probably the worst month and a half
at least
of
a
just
month.
Horrible MLS fandom. It just was not fun to be a fan of this team. We were saying, will we ever score a goal again?
Yeah, that was one of the storylines I
remember. Vince, you want to lead us off, and then I can explain where I'm coming from?
Yeah, 2020 CONCACAF Champions League Tigres, kind of similar in the vein of the 2019 Western Conference final, although this was a legit final, and we'd also beaten so many Mexicans. When they got to the bubble, and everyone was like, well, LAFC is going to have to beat this team, and this team. And I remember when they beat León before the world fell apart, we were like, oh man, we're going to have to play all these Mexican teams to even get to the final. Well, I feel pretty good about it. And then everything falls apart. They go there, we're like, they've had a rough season. I don't know. And then they couldn't lose. And they refused to lose. They would go down in games and still find a way to win. Edward Atuesta gets red carded and they still find a way to win because Carlos Vela just dominates Club America. And it was so fun to watch. Not only was Carlos doing things at that Club America game, but then Mahala shows up. Diego Rossi's playing well. Everyone was really playing at the top of their game until about the 66th minute of the final, when they give up a fluky corner kick goal. The ball goes between Mark Anthony Kaye's legs, and 9 times out of 10, he clears that ball, and it's not a problem, and they probably win that game, or at the very least get it to extra time. But then, yeah, Poncho gets bodied, and I just felt that was the one time where I really was dude, we're, like you guys were saying, we're a team of destiny. I believe in this team. I can't believe we made this far, and we're going to shock the whole world. And everyone that's been clowning on us for not winning MLS Cup is going to have to eat shit because we beat all these Mexican teams and then won, even though it was in the bubble. And don't forget, Ante Razov also punched Piojo in the face, which was fucking awesome.
Oh, shit.
So, I just...
I would 100% forgot.
The storylines, just the run in Orlando would have been so incredible. And so that, from there, I was almost oh... Well, games sometimes just shit happens. And maybe that's why I'm the way I am. It just broke me a little bit where I was oh, you can't get too sad about these things because the weirdest shit has already happened.
I think that's a really good encapsulation of why that game mattered so much and why it was so fun. I think the run up to it was so fun. I think that red card against Club America was when we won that game, it felt like we were coming off the Leon best game we've ever seen. Obviously months earlier, but like my favorite moment as a fan. I ranked that above MLS Cup because I missed it.
It was an incredible game. Like, honestly, one of the greatest games I've ever seen.
I was like in tears, hugging strangers in the crowd, like just like losing my mind. Cruz Azul and then Club America with the red. I think emotionally, and that's what I always bring to the table here. Last game that had really mattered to me in a real sense was that 2019 Western Conference. We had lost. We beat Leon. Wow, we're still that really good team that I always knew we were. The world shuts down. And I do remember in 2020, like MLS coming back, it was the first league to come back. And it was I remember it was like, there's something on TV to watch. I have something that brings me joy. And then we kept fucking dominating in the bubble. We beat the Galaxy by like 8 goals. And then it just felt like, again, this was a team that was unbeatable. And I remember it was like December of 2020 around then. It was just turning the page, but we had been in fucking isolation for a long time. And I was so strict about isolation. I was real fucking sad all the time. And so I remember watching that game in bed and we went up, right? We were up in that game against Tigres. Yeah. And it was like, we're going to fucking do it. I lost my mind. And I just remember my wife was next to me realizing that we were going to lose. and just like the realization of like, okay, I'm going to feel like shit, I guess, for a week. Like the thing that I had put so much time into and the only thing that had been bringing me joy in this like horrific moment in history blows up. And it was just another reminder that there is no God. And so
and here we are.
Wow. But we're
talking about this.
You brought it full circle.
At a real dark point. It brought me even lower. And so I will never not forget that loss to Tigres in my bedroom in the dark where I screamed so loud I scared my dog when we scored that goal. And then we lost. And I was sad.
Oof.
Well, that was us talking about all of the worst moments in LAFC history. We've done it. We've exercised the trauma. We don't need to talk about it anymore. This is exposure therapy. I hope you enjoyed your, Wednesday? When we come back, we're going to make some bets.
And we're back. Now it's time for a segment called Bet It and Forget It.
Bet it and forget it.
Every week we end the show with a bet for this week's game. We make an outlandish prediction, something that almost definitely will not happen, but could. Each week we all put up $5. If no one hits, the money rolls over to the next week, and eventually by the time someone's weird prediction comes true, they might win a good chunk of change. Our bet pool for this week is $45. We've been coming up blank. Well, the last time we did this, we had a trio of, I would say, some really good sort of gold standard bets. Mm-hmm. I bet a Lloris goal because I had to one up myself from the assist. Travis, you bet a Giroud hat trick.
Giroud hat trick. I don't think he's touched the ball 3 times, so I don't think that is possible.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
We didn't even play in the game. We wore a hoodie. And
oh, yeah.
And Vince, you predicted a Kai Kamara bike.
Which he tried like a scissor kick. So at least I was like, I was onto something.
And Lloris was just punting to the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
There was at least some vague threats.
Can I posit a bet and you guys tell me if it's outlandish enough?
Yeah.
Yes. That's all I ever do.
LAFC win.
Oh, fuck. Have we not had enough knife twisting on this episode?
Will you allow it?
So
would you allow it?
The knife twist episode.
The
seppuku episode.
That's such a funny. Give us one little more specific because it's so funny. But I need a little bit more to say it's outlandish.
They score more goals than the other team.
No, come on.
Okay.
Give us a score line or something. I agree that I don't think we're gonna win, but
what if I say LAFC win by just 1 goal? So if they win by 2 goals,
great. I'm on board.
Doesn't that make it less outlandish?
Yeah, but I added it. It's a parlay because if they win by 2 goals, I'm out. I'll be happy, but I don't get it.
LAFC win alone is less outlandish than LAFC win by 1-0 because the parameters in which he wins are smaller.
Nope, by 1-0. By 1 goal.
By 1 goal.
You know what? We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do.
It's harder to win by more than 1 goal.
1-0.
A 1-0? Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
1-0 exactly. Because 2-1. See, because if you told me like they have to win by 2 goals, and I'm like, dude, I'm not wasting my money.
Your goal is
Okay.
so
No,
much
that
less
makes sense.
outlandish than mine, and I want you to know that going in, and we're still putting the same amount of money in. My bet is this, and I'm very confident in it. Hassal penalty kick save. Hassal will save. Not only will Hassal play in the game,
he has to be in the game.
He will save a
Wow.
penalty kick.
Yeah, so he has to be in the game. There has to be a penalty. He has to save it. That's stacking the deck there in the wrong direction.
It's got to be outlandish.
I won't even be watching the game, so you guys will have to tell me if I.
Yeah.
I guess
if
it'll come
Vince's
through on my
bet
phone.
cashes, everyone lie and say it didn't happen.
Yeah.
If it cashes, I'm gonna call in from Arrowhead, just buying a round of drinks for everyone with the $45. That'll go a long ways, right?
Yeah. There's a couple of bars that you can get that for.
All right. My bet is I don't know if this is outlandish enough, but an Atuesta goal. This is circumstantially outlandish in my opinion.
When was the last time he scored? He scored against. Did he score in that game in Seattle? Right?
I don't know.
Remember.
I feel like it's a long shot when he's playing well, even.
Right.
Honestly, I like that you guys both have more realistic bets, and I have a crazy one. It makes me confident in my crazy one.
Oh no, wait. The game in
I was
Seattle
choosing
was
between him and Ordaz. So you guys pick which one, the outlandish
Yeah,
that you think is better.
I don't think Atuesta scored since this Colorado game, actually. Because the Seattle game was Bogusz, Kamara, Bowanga.
The only reason it feels a little outlandish to me is that our normal goal scorers aren't going to be there. And so I feel like he might have the desire to let it rip more. And he might be taking some set pieces as well.
So would you say Ordaz is more outlandish or less outlandish?
I think Ordaz is more outlandish. He scored way fewer goals.
I'm going for the more outlandish option. So I'll switch it to Ordaz.
It's hard to say because like
if Ordaz is in, he's a striker.
Yeah. No, I think actually Ordaz has a better likelihood because I think Atuesta doesn't take many shots.
The debate makes this a good bet, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I think he's probably going to take some set pieces. I think he'll have a couple shots on goal this game because we're missing so many of our players, but we'll see.
El Profe. Maybe we'll sell some merch.
Yeah, if he scores, you guys have to buy the Atuesta merch.
We'll do a promo.
If
he scores, we'll give you a discount on the Atuesta.
Shut up! We are already down on money. That's our show.
It'll be a promo for non Patreon. Patreon people already have the discount.
And if you're in the Patreon, let us know how you felt about the more loose storylines thing. Our theme music is done by actually, I don't give a shit. Don't tell me. The theme music is done by the insane team of James Valentine, Nate Walcott, and Louis Palmer. If you made it this far in the show and you like what you hear and you want to help us keep making the show, you become a friend of the foot over at patreon.com/happyfootsadfoot. Just give us $5 a month. That's way less than parking at one LAFC game. You can review this podcast at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can follow us on social media, and you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 1,000, and we're at like 740. I think we've made good something.
Steady progress.
We've made really good progress in a year and a half. We want to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. So help us. If you're not subscribing to the YouTube channel, subscribe over at youtube.com/@happyfootsadfoot. Or you can pick up some Hapo Sappho or Edward Atuesta inspired merch over at happyfootsadfootpod.com. Patreons get a 15% off. We also have a great new Bowanga pissing merch if you're interested. Any support really goes a long way to keeping this show going and the community growing. Thanks again, and we'll see you in that city we don't talk about, baby. I love you. Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Not me. It's my birthday on Friday.
Happy birthday to you. Oh, wow. Happy birthday to you.
This is more awkward than I ever thought it would be.
Happy birthday, dear Vincent from Cosm. Happy birthday.
That's how I know now by my job.
Yeah, you have to change it from LAFC Vince to Cosm Vince. Happy birthday to you.
Wow, that's all the presents I needed. Wow.
Say it. Say it.
I do love you guys. That was pretty sweet.
That's birthdays, baby.